Today on Psych! March 13th, 1964. Kitty Genovese, a young 28-year-old Queens resident, was brutally raped and stabbed to death as she returned home from work late one night in New York City. 38 people witnessed the attack, which took place in 2 or 3 distinct episodes over a period of about half an hour, and yet no one did anything to stop it. No one even reported it to the police until the woman was already dead. October 24th, 2009, a 15-year-old girl was beaten and gang raped by a group of 10 men outside of Richmond High School in California at a homecoming dance. As many as 20 people witnessed this event. 5 of these witnesses even laughed as the attack unfolded, while others took photos with their cell phones, yet no one reported it. October 13th, 2011, a 2-year-old girl was ran over by a van in a hit-and-run accident. She stayed on the ground as the witnesses at the Chinese farmers market walked right by her bleeding body. She then was ran over the second time minutes later by another van, and nobody came to rescue her. Why did no one help these innocent victims or at least call for help? These events can all be explained by one psychological occurrence, the bystander effect. And now, here's our host, Sarah Beale.
Hello and welcome to Psych! Today we will be talking about the bystander effect. This psychological phenomenon has endangered many lives throughout the history of mankind, ever since the first caveman was brutally stabbed by a dinosaur and all the other cavemen just walked by and ignored it. Today, to talk more about the bystander effect, we have Dr. Fromlach.
Hi Sarah, thank you for having me on your show.
So tell us, Dr. Fromlach, what exactly is the bystander effect?
Well, Sarah, the bystander effect is a tendency for any given bystander to be less likely to give aid if other bystanders are present. If the situation is ambiguous, people will look to others to see if they recognize the situation as an emergency. If everyone else chooses to ignore the potential emergency, then that person will also choose to ignore it.
Interesting. Now let's go to Maria Babinkova to see what people think of the bystander effect and see if they believe they would defy its theory.
Here we are at Granite Bay High School to see what people think about the bystander effect. If you were in a public place and saw a person laying face down on the ground, what would you do?
Well, first of all, I'd check to see if they were conscious, and if they were unconscious, I'd probably call 911 and try using my CPR skills, and if they were conscious, I would just help them with whatever they needed help with.
I'd probably go make sure they're breathing. If they are, ask them if they're okay, and yeah, just make sure they're still alive.
If I saw someone laying down on the ground, face down, I would probably kind of step around them, kind of concern though. I don't think I'd actually check on them. If I happen to be walking back the other way later that day, then I would end up checking up on them, but at first glance I would not.
First I'd check their wallet, then their...
Hey, Mike.
Oh, hey.
I'd probably check to see if they need help, if they're alive. If they're alive, I'd probably take them to the hospital.
I would call 911.
Honestly, I probably wouldn't react. Given the situation, I'd need a more specific context. In an ambiguous situation, I would assume that they are fine, especially if no one else is reacting, and would go on my merry way without much thought.
Alright, well, if I saw someone laying down, face down in the mall, I would first go up to them, ask them, see if they're alive first, and if they don't move, then I'll call 911 and wait for the emergency crew to get there.
If I saw someone laying face down in a public place, I would ask them if they're okay and, check if they're sleeping or something. And if they're not, I would call 911 and, see if anyone could help them in the meantime.
My first instinct would be to make sure they're actually injured, maybe not something super severe happened, but then I would go over and help them no matter if I was in a group of people or not.
I think that you need to help someone no matter what, whether your friends think it's cool or not.
I would check my surroundings and make sure that everything was safe around me and them, and then I'd go and see if they were okay.
If I were to find somebody face down on the ground, I would see if they're okay first, and if it happened right in front of me, I would definitely see if they were okay and check for any injuries.
I would definitely try to help them, especially if they felt close to me, because, I mean, they're hurt, and I would want someone to do the same thing for me.
So this is what general public would do in a given situation.
Thank you, Maria. So many people believe that they would be the one to give aid in any emergency situation, even though the bystander effect says otherwise.
Precisely. A lot of people deny that inevitability that they wouldn't give help in such an emergency situation. Many think that they'd be the ones to stop and see if it is an emergency, thinking they're the good Samaritan.
Now, to test this theory, we held a couple of experiments to see how people would really react when in the presence of many others.
For this first experiment, I disguised myself as a high school student and selected random parts of campus to pretend to fall and spill my papers in. We used hidden cameras to catch people's reactions and determine how many people follow the bystander effect and choose to ignore the situation.
I like how she's matching the shoes, though.
Watch the group of guys on the left. They all turn their heads and obviously notice the fall. Watch as these two guys even come closer to help, but then stop and turn back to their group.
They choose to not provide help because they look to their friends who clearly don't recognize the situation as an emergency, and thus they avoid standing out of the group.
So judging from these experiments, it looks like a lot of people may talk the talk, but they don't always walk the walk. Are there any other factors that may contribute to the bystander effect?
Yes, some factors that contribute to the bystander effect is if the situation is ambiguous, the number of people around, if the person makes small talk before the emergency, and how well the person is dressed.
Fascinating. Now here we have another experiment showcasing the impact of these influences.
Watch a pickpocket in action. The woman with the rucksack is his victim, and the man in the grey top on the left is the thief. Except they're both acting. In fact, everyone in the queue is with us, apart from the man in the blue shirt. As the thief moves in, will our bystander notice? He clearly has. What's more, he's seen that other people in the queue have noticed too. Now, what's he going to do about it? The answer is nothing. After all, no one else in the queue reacts, so why should he? Chances are, you wouldn't have done anything either. Whatever the man in the blue shirt thinks he's seen, he's influenced by the apathy of everyone else in the queue. In more serious situations, this could have disturbing consequences. Liverpool Street Station in London. A drunk lies on the pavement. In fact, he's our actor Peter, but these passers-by aren't to know that. And since he looks the worse for wear, not critically ill, they ignore him. Helping would be inconvenient or even risky. He lies there for 20 minutes and no one raises an eyebrow. This time, we've dressed Peter as a respectable city gent. How long before he's rescued now that he looks the part?
Hello, sir. are you today?
I'm alright then.
6 seconds. She even calls him sir. And suddenly everyone's a good Samaritan.
Do you suffer from epilepsy?
No.
While you're lying on the floor in the rain?
After a couple of minutes, even the police turn up.
I would just hate to be in his position of feeling ill and nobody helping and walking past, so I'd just like to check that he was okay.
I thought, well, it's wet, so he must really be ill because he's going to ruin his suit anyway.
Our actress Ruth takes Peter's place. She's not a drunk, but she's also not a city gent. How long before she gets help? Four minutes have passed, and 34 people have passed.
People don't really want to know. They just haven't got the time. Well, they have got the time, they just don't want to get involved.
But it's more complicated than that. If the street were deserted, a passerby would probably go to the rescue. But these strangers have silently formed a temporary group with a rule: don't help. This woman, for instance, has clearly spotted Ruth, but she conforms to the rule and does nothing. Watch what happens, though, when someone else helps. She suddenly finds herself in a different group with a new rule: to help.
She don't look well, does she?
You alright, yeah? What's wrong?
First I thought she was dead. Then I checked to see if she was breathing or not. And I looked around and I couldn't believe that no one had noticed her, because there was a bloke sat there just absorbed in reading a newspaper.
Peter's now having the same problem. This time, we've swapped his suit for casual clothes. He's not drunk, and we've asked him to act like he's in pain.
Help! Help! Help me! Please, somebody! Help me! Help me, somebody! Please help me! Help me! Help me! Help me! Please, somebody help me! Please, somebody help me!
As you can see for the contrast between the interviews and the experiments, the general public falsely believes that they would give aid to anyone in need if they ever came across such a situation. Yet, judging from these experiments, that is not always the case.
So remember, if you ever see anyone that may possibly need help, or you're in a situation that could potentially be dangerous, don't judge your actions based on what others are doing. Go with your gut and help. You may even save a life.
Thank you, Dr. Fromlack. Well, that's our show for today. See you next time on Psych!